I'm joined by Jen McAward, whose teaching and research interests focus on civil rights, constitutional law, and habeas corpus. An undergraduate alumna of Notre Dame, she joined the law school faculty in 2005 and was named Distinguished Professor in 2007. Jen is the acting director of Notre Dame Center for Civil and Human Rights, and we are pleased to welcome her on Notre Dame Day to talk about the center and its work. Jen, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it. Happy Notre Dame Day.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the Center for Civil and Human Rights and its connection to the legacy of Father Theodore Hesburgh.
Father Ted founded the Center for Civil and Human Rights in 1973. He had served on the U.S. Civil Rights Commission for 15 years, and President Nixon forced him to resign because he insisted on criticizing the administration's civil rights record. So Father Ted came back to Notre Dame and decided that Notre Dame needed to have a significant presence on civil rights issues and take some leadership in terms of scholarship and education. So he founded the Center for Civil and Human Rights, and a few years later decided to expand its mission to include international human rights, thinking that really civil and human rights are two sides of the same coin. The question is, how can law advance human dignity and promote accountability when dignity is violated?
Sure, and I think most of us remember that famous photograph of Father Ted with his arms linked and civil rights leaders at the time. Those of us who lived through and remember at least part of the 50s and the 60s may think of civil rights defined in those terms as being sort of race issues within the United States. But as you mentioned, there's an international dimension to it. So what types of things are you working on specifically, cases either here or around the world?
Well, the Center for Civil and Human Rights has all kinds of international efforts. So we are dealing with human rights or human trafficking. We're dealing with kind of international accountability mechanisms in the Inter-American system. We also have an international human rights LLM program, which takes lawyers from all over the world every year and brings them to Notre Dame and educates them about human rights theory and practice, and then sends them back into the world.
Yeah.
We're very proud of our graduates from the Human Rights LLM program.
Notre Dame is really a center for that. It's produced, I think, 300 or so lawyers who work in civil rights. Let's talk about that master's program. Tell us a little bit about that and what you're trying to develop with that.
Sure. We actually have 360 graduates from 90 different countries.
Wow.
And as I said, we're very proud of the program. Our graduates are all over the world doing really leading work on human rights issues. And just in the last week and a half, we welcomed back some of our original graduates who are South Africans to talk about how Notre Dame and their education through the center had transformed their lives. And so we had one of South Africa's constitutional court justices, their leading court, who's a Notre Dame graduate. We had the dean of one of South Africa's leading law schools. Leading human rights practitioners in South Africa all came back not only to talk about human rights in South Africa, but also about how Notre Dame really transformed their lives and helped to transform their country after apartheid.
Sure. And speaking of transforming lives, you started at Notre Dame as an undergrad, you then went to NYU, now you're back. So talk a little bit about how that Notre Dame education, those formative years as an undergrad, shaped what you're now doing.
Notre Dame made me who I am. It provided me the faith formation and the personal formation to think about my role in the world, and it provided me the intellectual capacity to think about how I can advance the common good in everything I do. I'm profoundly grateful for my time at Notre Dame as a student, and now to be back here as a faculty member is just a real gift.
Yeah, Jen, we appreciate it so much, you being here today. That's so great for you to spend some time with us and share a little bit about the Center for Civil and Human Rights at the Notre Dame Law School.
Thank you very much.